to this event. I would like to ask and remind the participants to switch off their cameras and their sound to enable a best quality of transmission. We are above 120 participants, so to allow the good conditions of this event, I would like the colleagues to switch off their cameras. When the speakers are obviously making their intervention, they will turn on their cameras, and also naturally they will switch on their sounds. It's for us a great pleasure to welcome you, and for sure this event will be recorded and will be shared in our website once the event is over. The objective of this event is basically to discuss the evidence on sport as a tool for substance use prevention and obviously promising practices around these topics. It is obviously based and builds in UNODC Global Initiative on youth crime prevention through sports, the Lineup Liver program, and also the UNODC and WHO international standards on drug use prevention, and obviously all relevant research on how sports contributes to the healthy youth development, well-being, life skills, and obviously learning for life. Before we start with all the welcoming remarks of our esteemed panelists, I would like also to extend the biggest appreciation for our side, also to the Dominican Republic Permanent Mission to the international organizations in Vienna, and in particular Ms. Stephanie for co-sponsoring, organizing this event with us. So without further ado, I will start with high-level opening, and I will have the great pleasure to introduce and give the floor to His Excellency Ambassador Sultan Salem Al Mansouri, which is the Ambassador of the State of Qatar to the United Nations in Vienna. Your Excellency, Ambassador, thank you for all the support and again for being with us. So Your Excellency, you have the floor. Thank you.
Thank you, Marco. Thank you so much. Distinguished panelists, dear colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. Thank you so much for giving me this opportunity in this timely event to open the remarks or to speak in this opening remark on using the sport to prevent drug use. Sport is not only a physical activities for a free time entertainment. It is a structured set of rules, commitments, agent of change, and effective tool for peace that allow promoting unlimited benefits, in particular, socialization, strengthening relationship with others, express one's gifts and talent, know one body better, share common goals with others, develop loyalty, promote cultural value, improve self-esteem. Certainly, we do not have so far an evidence-based through assessment on the sport rules in reducing drug use. But if we put all together the above mentioned positive aspect of a sport, the only conclusion we reach is that sport is a strong shield against self-destruction drug use. In my country, Qatar, sport is an essential element of our strategic protections, protect youth from crime and drugs, as well as to promote economic and social development. In addition, Qatar is determined to become the global leader in sport and bring the world together through sport. Qatar has hosted more than 500 international sports events in the last 15 years. And the 2022 World Cup in Qatar is the latest. And there is still much to come. Thus, Qatar and UNODC decided to make crime prevention through sport one of the main pillars of Doha Declaration Global Program launched in 2016. This component of the global program trained 1,100,000 youth of 850 coaches in 11 countries. Also, the Lineup Live Up program, sport-based life skills training curriculum, is a unique initiative that transfer the accumulated experience of the United Nations and other partners in implementing life skill training for crime and drug use preventing sport setting. As we approach the closure of the Doha Global Program activities and initiative, we feel a need to build upon the legacy and achievement of this innovation program. Here comes the role of all of us to engage in a partnership with the UNODC, governments, sports organizations, and civil society to disseminate the benefits of sport as a crime and drug prevention factors, helping to mobilize the communities by promoting sports. Thank you so much, and I wish you all the best, hoping this event will be beneficial for all the participants. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Your Excellency, Ambassador Al-Mansouri, not only for your personal commitment, but also for the state of Qatar, for championing the use of sports to development, to crime prevention and drug abuse prevention also. So we are very grateful and looking forward to continue to build on what we have done so far. I will move to another part of this opening remarks, and of course I have a great pleasure to hand over the floor to my colleague Giovanna Campello, Chief of the Prevention, Treatment, Rehabilitation Section of UNODC. And of course, Giovanna, it's always a pleasure to organize events with you and your respective team. And of course, if you'd like to share a few thoughts with us to set the stage for what we have been doing, so important area of drug prevention. So over to you, Giovanna. Thank you.
Thank you, Marco, and Excellency Ambassador Sultan Al-Mansouri, distinguished panelists and guests, and dear friends and colleagues. It's a real great honor for me to open this event on the contribution of sports to substance use prevention. Maybe you can hear it in my voice. Thank you for having me and for giving me the opportunity to highlight the great importance in this field, to add my few words to the words of His Excellency. Let me start with a bit of history. I will be brief, I promise. Substance use prevention is based by now on 30 years of science. Science that underlines how the risk factors at the individual and at the environmental levels that put people at risk of starting to use substances are often common to other risky behaviors, such as youth violence and crime, etc. And the International Standards on Drug Use Prevention, the second edition of which we have published jointly with WHO in 2018, identify a number of strategies that have been found to be effective in preventing substance use by addressing these very factors. Because these factors are common to many risky behaviors, these strategies are also effective in preventing not only substance use, but also violence, delinquency, and therefore in supporting the healthy and safe development of children and youth. Now, this is the crux of the matter. The development of children and youth, as well as the well-being of adults, is anchored in social and emotional skills and therefore it should come as no surprise that many of the strategies that have been found to be effective in the standards include a strong component of social and emotional learning. Does this ring a bell? Remember, many of the core principles of sports, like His Excellency just reminded us, include components supporting social and emotional development. When UNODC started to work on this, the potential was therefore very clear, but we still did not have packages using such principles with enough scientific evidence. Sports in the context of prevention was mostly used, how can I say it, as an activity to fill leisure time of children or to keep out of school youth off the street without any structured social and emotional learning content. So when the colleagues of the Doha Declaration came to ask and asked us, is there any evidence-based life and social skill program embedding sports as a setting for prevention? I had to say no, but then I quickly added, but we can develop one, because the potential is there. And this is how Line Up Live Up was born, as a joint collaboration between the experience of UNODC desks working on crime and violence prevention, and my desk that focuses on evidence-based approaches for substance use prevention. And let me take a moment here to thank the government of Qatar for giving us all this amazing opportunity with its support to the Doha Declaration. With Line Up, Live Up, the evidence-based knowledge on social and emotional learning in schools was adapted to be delivered in and through sports, and it has been a great adventure. 13 countries in Africa, Central Asia, Latin America, Europe, 1,100 trainers, 14,000 youth, and this includes many out-of-school youth, a population in very vulnerable circumstances. This work is still in progress, and we will need to focus more on this, but the process and impact assessment studies conducted so far reveal very promising results. And this is also contributing to fill an important gap in the scientific evidence, namely how to support out-of-school youth with low and middle-income countries, implementation in low and middle-income countries leading the way. Building on this and looking at the future, it would be great to see sports as a component of youth social empowerment integrated in national prevention systems, their environmental policies, and their supportive preventive structures in families, schools, and communities. This would really strongly reinforce prevention outcomes and as such really support our member states in reaching many of their sustainable development goals and commitments, not only Sustainable Development Goal 3.1 on drug prevention and treatment. Excellency, dear participant, together with you, I'm very excited to learn more about this from our panelists today, and I wish you a very, very productive event. Thank you.
Thank you, Giovanna, for taking us back to the inception of the Line Up, Live Up, the objectives, and how social and emotional development can actually have a role on preventing different kinds of antisocial behavior, drug abuse, violence, etc. So I think this completes in the best way possible the setting the stage and starting now with a different intervention from our panelists. So once again, thank you to His Excellency Ambassador Mansouri, to you, Giovanna, for being with us. And now I have the great pleasure to hand over to a very important part of this event. I'm very privileged to work with an amazing team. So I will pass now to the team leader of my team, Georgia Dimitropoulos, which is a crime prevention and criminal justice officer and is our lead on the crime prevention through sport component of the DOH Global Program. And before I end up and hand over to you, George, I want to appreciate the more than 160 participants that are joining us and the teams, and also the colleagues that are assisting the live streaming of this event. So, Georgia, over to you and take us through this interesting event. Thank you.
Thank you, Marco, for the nice words, and also want to thank all the participants. As you mentioned, the event is also live streamed due to the increased interest for people to attend the event. So we're cautious about the time, so I would like to continue by presenting our first main speaker, Mr. Pierre van der Krift. He's a lecturer and researcher in the University College of Ghent in Belgium, in Brussels. Pierre is a social educator. He's a lecturer, as I said, in the University of Ghent and has supported the development and delivery of many life skills training programs, including the Unplugged program on drug abuse prevention, but also the Lions Guest program. Pierre was also a lead expert in developing the Line Up, Live Up manual. And he's a key author of the Line Up, Live Up curriculum. And today he will present us he will reflect on the Line Up, Live Up methodology and approach, but also on the role of sports in drug use prevention, mainly as a tool for skills development and learning for young people. So, Pierre, the floor is yours.
Thank you. I hope that I succeeded. I hope that I succeeded in sharing the presentation. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, you can see it.
So just like Giovanna said before, there are many risk factors and protective factors that are not only present but also common between violence, criminality, and substance abuse. For our topic of today, it is very interesting to see that there are so many blue bullets, as you can see in this slides, and I highlighted the 3 ones that I put a red circle around. First of all, in the family and community environment, to have in any case the impression, the perception that your parents approve of drinking or of smoking or of misusing medication or of, for example, cannabis use. There is also on the bottom of this graphic the favorable attitude, the positive attitude of friends to problem behavior, to drug use, or in any case the perceived ones. And then in the middle I highlighted the lack of commitment to school, which is a risk factor for not only crime and violence, but also for drug use. And exactly in the school-based program Unplugged, which is a thoroughly studied effective program on substance abuse reduction, exactly there we did not only measure the effects, but also did we make a mediator analysis in Europe on top and also in Nigeria below. Europe was 2008, below was 2014. A mediator analysis is, if you know that it is effective, the program, what makes it effective? What parts of the program does it make lead to the effect? And this was for this school program, the decrease of a positive attitude towards drugs. Oh, sorry. Oops. The perceived approval by friends and an increase, of course, of refusal skills. Those mechanisms made the program effective. In Nigeria, it was not the decrease of positive thinking about drugs, but the increase of negative thinking. It's a bit the same, but it's another tactic that the teacher has to use for this. And in Nigeria, also the positive climate, the positive class climate was a mediator that was leading to the effective results. And they cope with what you just have seen as these risk factors. If we knew with UNODC and a group of experts that this school program is effective, that there are many similar risk and protective factors, we were looking at how can we use sport as a mechanism for drug prevention. First of all, from these school prevention experiences, we knew very sure, and also from many other programs, that an interactive delivery, meaning put your children in small groups to discuss among themselves and to work together so that they learn from each other, that is leading to more social control, what we want, or to more social influence, to more positive social influence. And this interactive delivery is immanent to sports. Sport is interactive. Second bullet, even if the teacher is a very good teacher, he remains a teacher in front of the classroom. Informal learning by playing, by a game, that is working much better. The grassroots football program from FIFA is an example of this. It's not simply letting children playing football, but in a huge part of the world, there are many organizations where the trainers are trained by grassroots and where the football play is becoming a learning moment. In the Icelandic model in Iceland, there has been a program that has decreased alcohol use by increasing very thoroughly leisure activities and sports activities in the evening. And there was a significant decrease of alcohol use. These were the basis, such things were basis of the design of lineup Live Up, where we combine life skills, what you can do, with attitudes, what you think, and we do not throw away, of course, knowledge. You need to have knowledge, but knowledge is more approached as correction of misperception than learning new facts about this or that component of drugs. One example of an activity. There are many people from treatment that ask prevention people, please focus more on learning young people to ask for help and to accept help instead of being reluctant to ask help. And this is a game that we learn in Lineup Live Up. We ask the group of pupils to form. We showed them this card. We said, make this acronym figure in 2 minutes without any further instruction. They try and it doesn't work. Then we gave them the other side of the card and we said, here is a help card. And also one of you needs to be the helper. And now follow the help instructions and use the helper. And then look here, it works perfectly. And that kind of acro-gym activity. There are many, of course, football games, other ball games. In total, there are 10 lessons in 10 sessions in Lineup Live Up to work on impulsivity control, on positive self-esteem, on critical thinking, and one of the lessons is also asking for help. The sense of the reason or the sense of working with norms, with rules, is also one of the sessions. Finally, as one important component of the Lineup Live Up prevention program, I want to focus on the training of the trainers. It's really a 3-day training, is really necessary in order to be able to transfer the game experiences to the real life world where they live in, to drug abuse, their thinking about food. That's my contribution. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Pierre, very much for this nice presentation, and also for keeping the time. I just want to reflecting also in the questions that we have received for the persons that are pre-registered to the event. So I would like to ask you, from your experience in the life skills training programs, and also with the Lineup Live Up program and methodology, how can you summarize very shortly in 2 points the main contribution or added value of sports-based elements in these life skills training programs?
I think
that that they do not have the sports element, for example.
I believe that, of course, with clever design of the activities, you can, in sports activities, we can have the target group, the young people, we can have them experience what we want to learn. Like what we call experiential learning is very essentially present in sports activities, and that is the biggest contribution, I think.
Thank you very much. If there is time at the end, we may have more questions for you. I would like now to move to another great partner of our program, Living Peer, going to Dominican Republic and the National Council of Drugs, which have been the main partner, one of the main partners in the country in implementing the Lineup Live Up program. The National Council of Drugs in Dominican Republic, it has focused its activities on prevention, and they have also a dedicated program and a dedicated department of prevention through sports, acknowledging the contribution that sports can bring in these type of interventions. And today we have with us Edwin De Valle, who is the coordinator on demand reduction department of the National Council of Dominican Republic, that he's going to present us the work of the Council on prevention, focusing in particular on sports, reflecting on how sports are used for life skills training and development, but also for community engagement. So I would like to ask Edwin to open his camera and join us for his intervention. Thank you, Edwin. The floor is yours. You can start your presentation.
Thanks, Georgia. You can see the presentation, right?
Yes, very well.
All right. Thanks, Georgia. Good afternoon, everyone. DC for allowing us to participate in the 64th Commission on Narcotic Drug and present of experience in the context of prevention in sports. I also want to introduce you my co-worker, Joanna Gonzalez, who is in charge of the Sports Prevention Department and responsible for executing prevention plans and programs through sports. Let's start. The National Drug Council is government body of drug policies in the country and advisor to the executive government on drugs. The Demand Reduction Directorate, it is in charge of designing, planning, and supervising drug policies and strategies, and articulated them in government structure, civil society, and non-profit organizations. He has several preventive departments in which we can point out the Sport Prevention Department, which is in charge of integrating the prevention of drug use in all sport areas, executing various plans and programs such as Line of Live Out program, empowerment plan in prevention for sport leaders, preventive prospect orientation plans, leagues in prevention, and award plans. So the question is, why is prevention important in the sport field? Sport is a physical activity that has a structure or set of agreed rules, and that allows you to compete with yourself or with an opponent, in which millions of people, especially adolescents and young people all over the world, are integrated. As in the school, family, and community environment, sport is another area of social interaction where, as in other area, there is a risk and protective factors. The risk factor associated with the commission of juvenile crime, violence, and drugs use are closely related to each other. So when we work on drug use prevention, we are preventing other risk factors. Well-oriented sport practice constitutes a protected factor against drug use, which is why the importance of training capacity in physical education coaches and teachers to develop preventive intervention in children, adolescents, and young athletes with the objective to strengthen skills and attitude that promote values such as teamwork, personal improvement, respect to the rules, self-esteem, group pressure, the management of emotional and tolerance to frustration. In addition to exercising prevention work of the consumption of psychoactive substance and criminal behaviors. The Line of Live Up program was adopted by Dominican Republic in 2018, which had the participation of several Dominican authorities, such as National Drug Council, the Minister of Education, the National Institute of Physical Education, among others. On November to 2017, we participated as observers of the lineup live program in Brazil. In May 2018, there was a meeting with the country authority, and they agreed on the relevance and value of the program in the Dominican Republic. In July 2018, a group of 6 Dominican authorities traveled to Colombia to receive a theoretical training. This was followed by a launch event on August 2018 in Dominican Republic with the president of the Qatar embassy. At the end of the same month, a theoretical training was carried out with 33 participants. Some of these facilitators start the pre-pilot in 9 schools to test the program. So this pre-pilot was not evaluated, but it made it possible to access to cultural adaptability and viability of the program in the context of the country. In March 2019, 3 TOT, along with 32 participants, mostly physical education teachers, complete a theoretical training and receive their certification. In May 2019, a third theoretical training took place that allowed the certification of 25 facilitators. As a result of this great academic training, the Dominican Republic has 2 implementation the program in educational centers and leagues and clubs. So for the first implementation was in the school and center with 493 participants. It took place from March to May 2019. 15 facilitators complete the program with 756 young in 15 school centers with 9 mentors. And we have a random selection of school chosen for their vulnerability. So in leagues and clubs, we got 10 sport academies members of the CNA and other institutions. It was implementation in the 5 club with 8 facilitator and 5 mentors. And we got very different social relative and resource in each group. Some strange of this implementation in a school was students know each other and feel comfortable sharing. High school student in the program's age range, we got a good structure and support from the school board. Also, we got some challenges in the school. We got few school resources. We got lack of committed and competent of this facilitator. We got change in focal point and authority. In the case of sports, club, and league, some strengths were committed and knowledge of the participant in sport, available sport material provided by the CNA, dedication and commitment of facilitator, and diversity in groups, socioeconomic, neighborhoods, and nationalities. Some challenges were the lack of support from the coaches, ignorance of its benefits, and the session at night. Training on weekends will generate a lack of ability, personnel for tutoring and evaluations. So as a result of this implementation, today have been certificated 93 facilitators in 3 theoretical training, 830 young people belonging to educational center, leagues, clubs, and sport academy, and 6 TOF training and certificate by UNODC. The authority involved have joined force to include preventive policies in sport, including their inclusions, in the National Strategic Drug Plans 2021-2025, in the annual operating plans, and in the management of education centers. You can see this is the graduation ceremony on November 2019 with 493 participants. That is Georgia.
Thank you very much for this very thorough presentation, also for getting into the different steps and the process for integrating the Line Up Live Up program in the work of the National Council. And I would like to take the opportunity to thank again the National Council, but also the Ministry of Education in Dominican Republic for the great partnership and work we did together, and Johanna and her team from the National Council that we worked together all these years, but also the permanent mission in Vienna for supporting us today in this event, and the contribution of the Dominican Republic for today. Very short, being cautious of the time, a very short question for a short answer, although it might be quite complicated, the answer. I just want to ask how your activities on prevention have been adapted in the COVID situation now, especially the sports activities.
Well, we have adjusted to virtuality, developed the part of the drug abuse prevention through sports. We have adapted the empowerment project of sport leaders and physical education teachers so that they can as a facilitators. So I have to say that the pandemic had delayed the expansions of the Line Up Live Up program planned for 2020 and 2091.
Okay, thank you, Edwin. I would like now to introduce and to welcome in our meeting today another panelist, another expert. I would like to welcome Ms. Anna Gutman. She's a research and policy analysis of the Canadian Center of Substance Use and Addiction. And Anna's work focusing in particular on substance use prevention among youth, and today she's going to give us an overview. We're going to present the findings of the analysis that she did some years ago on an environmental scan of sports programs for youth, and looking into the effectiveness of these programs, but also the key elements of this type of interventions that make them effective. So Anna, the floor is yours.
Fantastic, and you can see my presentation?
Yes, we can see it.
Oh, great, thank you so much, and thank you for having me today. So yeah, as Georgia mentioned, I'm going to be presenting the results of an environmental scan conducted quite some time ago, so about 5 years ago. I'll drop a link into the chat at the end of the presentation so you all can access the scan. So just quickly, one of the reasons that we look at youth in terms of preventing substance use is because this is really a key time. We know that youth are at an increased risk for harm related to substances, especially in regards to brain development. And we also know that the earlier you start using substances, the more likely you are to develop a substance use disorder. So we know sport is a really great opportunity to kind of access this group. A very large portion of youth participate in sport, and it's already a time where we're talking about health and we're talking about the body. So understandably, it seems like a very great opportunity to talk about substance use and find ways to potentially prevent substance use. But unfortunately, it's a little more complicated than that. We have a lot of trouble actually measuring the relationship between sport and substance use, and that's because it's quite hard to define. So what exactly is sport? You know, is it just a team environment where you're looking at sort of soccer and football and those types of circumstances, or does it go as far as including, you know, figure skating or tennis? And it's difficult to define and therefore difficult to measure. So we actually conducted a quantitative study using some longitudinal data of Canadian youth aged 13 to 17. And we actually found some really interesting relationships between sport and substance use. And it really illustrates the complexity of this matter. It shows you sort of some of the different elements of sport that might contribute to a relationship. So, for example, when you look at participants of those in-school sports where it's more regulated, it's probably being supervised, we saw a decrease in alcohol use, which is a positive finding. But when you looked at out-of-school sports where youth are participating in maybe more of an informal matter, where it's more casual with friends, maybe after school, that actually resulted in an increase in marijuana use. And when we look at coaches, so that really kind of figurehead involved in sports, they have a positive effect. They actually, coach sports actually result in a decrease in marijuana use. But when you take the coach away, you see an increase in alcohol use. So I think that's a really good sort of example to show why this is a very complicated relationship, and it's difficult for us to say that participation in sport does necessarily either increase or decrease substance use among youth. So what we wanted to do is take a scan of sort of all the programs that exist that harness sport as an opportunity to reduce substance use. And we looked at programs in North America, so in Canada and in the US. And when we defined youth, we used those aged 10 to 24. So our goal was to really summarize what programs actually address substance use and have been evaluated and illustrate that they actually reduce substance use in the long term. So we actually weren't able to find as much as we would hope. So there was only 12 evaluated studies, and there was 14 in the gray literature. So we summarized sort of all the elements in these programs that were shown to have a positive effect on substance use. So there was a lot of really great evidence-based approaches in these programs, and some of our previous presenters already covered some of these. So it was encouraging to see that they've been adopted in the real world. But there's sort of three key elements that we found, three types of programs that were being used to address substance use with sport. So a big one was that peer-to-peer sort of team environment. So we see programs that are being created by youth and that are being delivered by youth. So for example, some more senior members of maybe a football team or a soccer team would really take the time to have discussions with the younger youth or the younger members about substance use, provide them sort of some approaches to maybe decreasing use. And because they really looked up to these players, it was actually very effective. We also saw some screening and counseling programs. So these were interesting programs where people would come in from the community. So one example would be a dentist came in from the community and screened youth for their oral health. And this was to kind of see if they have been using tobacco in a certain way. So this was like a baseball team. And the dentist would provide really targeted feedback and saying, you know, you're using tobacco this way, your oral health is being affected. Here's some ways that you can maybe improve your health or reduce use. And a third element was those social norming campaigns. I think someone has their microphone on, if they can maybe turn it off. These campaigns use data that is related to particular environments. So maybe it's like the campus environment of a university or a high school environment. They take local level data about substance use among those populations, and they give it back to those populations to kind of say, you know, not as many of your peers are necessarily using substances, not as many as you think. You know, these star athletes of these really big teams, you know, they aren't using substances. And when youth understand that those around them aren't doing this particular behavior, it's more effective for them to address their own behavior. So quickly, what does this mean? So there was a lot of really great elements that we found in these programs that we would hope to see adopted in the future. And I encourage everyone to access the scan when you have a chance. But I think some real quick lessons learned would really relate to sort of including a number of different people in delivering these messages and these programs. So have peers deliver key substance use messaging, coaches can deliver substance use education. Some programs actually sent materials back to parents, so parents were able to reinforce substance use messaging in the home, which was seen to be really effective. Have the program be relatable. So some of the sport programs included athletes that they knew youth were really looked up to and who they valued. And they made these personalized approaches. So like I was mentioning, you know, screen youth for their own behavior and provide really personal approaches to their health that they can adopt themselves. Providing an alternative behavior was very important. So it's easy to tell someone what they can't do, but can you give them sort of an alternative and give them sort of other options for addressing their substance use and their health. And that multi-pronged approach, as I mentioned, so you can apply programs across different areas. You can have policies on campuses and within schools, and you can have community messaging that's kind of reinforced outside of the schools. You really want these approaches to come at all sorts of different angles so that different types of youth are addressed. So that was it for me today. And I'm just gonna stop sharing.
Georgia, I think you're muted.
So I've provided the link to scan in the chat. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to thank you for this very nice presentation, very thoughtful, and for presenting us the results of your analysis. Also for pointing out this complex relationship between sports and substance use. So very briefly, you mentioned already in your presentation some of the elements that are important for the effectiveness of the program, but if you can summarize in 2-3 points, what do you think are the key elements of sport-based intervention to become effective, or you may want to point to which type of interventions, sports interventions, are less effective?
So I think if you really want to have any sort of effective substance use program, and I think this is the same, can be applied to sport and sort of any program, is really involving youth. So sitting down with them and finding out from them, you know, what kind of ways do you want to learn about substances, and what kind of ways do you want to learn about health, and how can you incorporate that into your desire to be an athlete or whatever it might be for them. So having them involved is really important. And I think there's been a bigger focus lately on harm reduction messaging when it comes to substances. So it kind of shying away from telling them they can't do something and they can't use substances, and talking about how they could reduce the ways that they're using to be in a more healthy manner.
Thank you, Anna. So we have a last speaker for today's event, and I want to thank you, and I want to move to the next speaker, which is Ms. Begoña Gomez del Campo. So Begoña is a specialist in substance use treatment and demand reduction, and she's also worked for UNODC for many years in this area, and we're very happy to have her today in a new role to speak on behalf of the association Proyecto Hombre about their work on prevention and how they have integrated sports and sports-based activities in their programming. So Begoña, the floor is yours.
Thanks, Georgia. Good afternoon to you all. And it is a pleasure for me to be here presenting the experience of the Association Proyecto Hombre on prevention through sports to such a dedicated audience. Thank you to the UNODC team for this opportunity. First of all, I want to explain very briefly what Association Proyecto Hombre is. It is an organization that strives to put prevention and treatment at the forefront of addiction problems. It has over 30 years of experience in the field of drug demand reduction and 20 years in prevention. And it is composed of 27 foundations in Spain that develop prevention and treatment programs regarding addictions, all based on the Proyecto Hombre humanistic and approach methodology. It is important to highlight there are different models of intervention directed to the specific needs of each profile. We offer outpatient programs, therapeutic community. We also work with people in prison, with families, and of course, with young people. Since its creation, referring only to prevention programs, APH has reached over 1.4 million beneficiaries through prevention programs. The Commission of Evaluation Experts carries out evaluations from our different programs and services. Reports are published annually. Due to the importance of sport, in guaranteeing healthy skills and habits, among other important benefits already pointed by previous speakers, almost all Project Hombre foundations use sport in their programs. We have chosen these two, Marbella and Catalunya. I named them promising practice since we cannot talk about evidence programs. Although they have a structured methodology, they have not been evaluated with a consolidated process. This is still pending. But about Project Hombre Marbella, the sport program inserted since 2015 is PIFE Sport. It is a systematized program with a precise methodology described in their manual, with the main objective of providing comprehensive support to coaches, school teachers, and to families, so that each student can improve their athletic performance by working in values and maintaining ethical conduct in studies and sport, as well as in other areas of their life, such as family and social lives. It is implemented as a universal prevention program in 3 private sport clubs and as a selective prevention program at 2 CIS in very vulnerable neighborhoods, and finally in treatment. PIFE Sport is an adaptation of the original model that Donald Hellison developed in Illinois and later Amparo Scarti of the University of Valencia brought to Spain. It is the PRPS or TPSR in English acronyms model. All the benefits of the PIFE Sport program are validated and demonstrated based on their predecessors. An ultimate empirical study with quality data has been carried by Project Hombre Marbella out with a sample of 20 girls and boys at high risk of exclusion, with the aim of measuring the adaptation of this PRPS model. The method is based on the idea that values are not promoted by the simple fact of sport practices. To achieve a correct transmission of ethical and social values, it is necessary to establish a precise methodology with specific objectives, practical activities, and strategies that make them operational and appropriate evaluation techniques. 9 methodological strategies are used to teach and promote the 5 levels of responsibility of the program: respect, effort, autonomy, leadership, and aid. The program focuses on transferring values and attitudes to all areas of users' life: family, social, academic, and work. To confirm the achievement of this process, monitoring tools have been developed. The sessions are structured, each detailing specific objectives and methodological strategies to achieve them. It begins with a meeting with young people to raise awareness of the objectives of the session and concludes with a final assessment meeting of what happened. The session seeks to turn physical activity into a training space, being able to generate situations through sport that can be identified and transferred to other areas of participants' life. The implementation starts with a theoretical and practical training directed to the coach. It continues with a face-to-face and virtual follow-ups with post-follow-up report feedback with recommendations. The third axis of the PIFE Sport program is the work with their families. And at the end of the process, once it is proven the necessary requirements are met, the PIFE Sport quality seal will be awarded. Since its inception, they have worked with more than 2,500 beneficiaries and more than 250 coaches. Also, despite the research limitations, the benefits are being appreciated, and the Marbella City Council has made the formation of PIFE Sport mandatory for all professionals of its municipal sports schools. About Proyecto Hombre Catalunya, they have included sport as a scheduled activity for anyone who participates in some of the Proyecto Hombre programs. They collaborate with Sport to Life to do it. Sport to Life is a non-profit association that uses sport to help people with mental health and addiction problems in their recovery process and social integration. There are two models. One is prevention for adolescents. Another is for people in treatment programs with the aim of minimizing risk factors and increasing protective factors related to start using drugs, and also to prevent drug use relapse in the case of people in a recovery process. This association carries out sports activities scheduled 3 times a week to be held in facilities outside or inside Proyecto Hombre, depending on the programs, facilitated by a Sport to Life coach under the supervision of Proyecto Hombre professionals. With this practice, physical exercise to create healthy lifestyle habits is carried out, and at the same time, other aspects are worked on, such as self-care, self-improvement, scheduled with different objectives. There's no time to explain with detail this part, but for example, there are sessions of cooperative games to work on the control of impulsivity and competitiveness, and sessions are adapted to create inclusive activities. Let's go with the conclusions. We understand that the sport itself is important in any healthy lifestyle. In addition, structured practice and the proper training of coaches brings added benefits, as is the opportunity to work on life skills and pro-social values. Will be will, overcoming, greater autonomy, feeling of group belonging, increased responsibility, increased pro-social attitudes, among others. But more evaluation is required to evidence it. Well, due to the time limitation, this presentation has relatively brief, but please feel free to contact me if you need more information. Thanks.
Thank you, Begonia, also for being mindful of the time and the constraints we have. So it was great to hear and from you and showcasing 2 concrete examples of how sports have been integrated in the work of the Proyecto Hombre. But you mentioned already that more monitoring and evaluation is needed, more impact assessment. We heard today also from the other experts and speakers of this event. Can I ask you from very shortly with a very brief answer? From your perspective, as a grassroots organization working in the field, what is the main challenge that you experience in terms of the sports-based programs when it comes to ensuring quality, fidelity, and monitoring this type of interventions?
Yeah.
If you can say in 2 words. I know it's a complex answer, but if you can just outline what are the 2 main elements as challenges you are.
Okay. Yeah, we'll try. Well, I think the main challenge to ensuring quality in the implementation is to guarantee the fidelity, as you mentioned, of the methodology of the program. So the training of the coach is really, really important. We offer a theoretical and practical training, and after that, the coach are supported by Proyecto Hombre tutors during the practical sessions. We also have an online continuous training, and we have teamworks to discuss about any doubts or whatever they want to share. And the training needs to be a comprehensive approach that includes gender perspectives. I think that's also an issue. About monitoring, I think it's okay. We have monitoring tools and they are collected by Proyecto Hombre professionals. But about evaluation, well, we found several challenges. First, the costly ones of a rigorous scientific assessment. But, well, I could mention maybe another challenge such as respect for quantitative data because of the writing difficulties of our vulnerable groups, but, well, among others.
Thank you. Thank you. Perhaps we'll have another event, one more event looking in particular on this type of challenges and how can be addressed. But thank you for, I think it's good to keep the importance of investing in the coaches, in the trainers. It is a very important, we hear from Pierre, but also the other expert that this is, the sports coaches are a key element in this sports-based intervention. So we need to invest more in their training and support them in delivering this type of activities.
That's
So
right.
we're a little bit over the time. So I will, before passing the floor to Marco for the closing remarks, I would like to just thank you again, but also remind you that we're going to share a survey in the chat room. We'll ask you to fill in and give us feedback on the event today to help us being better for the future ones. And yeah, without other delay, just to mention that also where the event is being recorded and it was also live streamed, and we're going to share with all pre-registered participants the recording, but also the presentations, as you have asked many in the chat, of the experts. So Marco, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Georgia, and of course, my appreciation to all the expert panelists for their sharing of experience and also insights on the use of sports to prevent substance use. As we have heard today, there are important commonalities between factors that led young people to use drugs and those that led young people also to engage in crime and violence. These common factors include, for instance, impulsivity, peer pressure, lack of supportive family environments, and the presence of drugs and violence in their communities. From our side, from UNODC side, we will continue to work from drug use and crime prevention perspectives to integrate prevention measures to address those problems in those communities. We have also seen today that while the relationship between sports and drug use prevention is not straightforward, more research will be needed for sure, but there is a solid evidence that sports can have an impact on the prevention of use. Which extent, that's what we need to continue to dig in and research the best way to do it. So our programs and the promising programs that we have heard across the world can also continue to use sport as an effective tool to increase, for sure, youth resilience to violence and crime, and also to drug use. As also we have heard today from experts, sports, when used in an intentional, well-structured and designed manner, can serve as a vehicle for social and emotional learning that creates skills for a better life and obviously for social inclusion and positive critical thinking and resisting obviously peer pressure. Sports also can prevent an opportunity to teach young healthy lifestyles and can be effective in reaching out to more vulnerable and marginalized youth, making them feel part of their own communities. I'm aware of time. Obviously, I don't want to continue too much beyond time. I want to mention also that we remain committed to use evidence-based interventions, as discussed today in the event, and invest more time, more resources in research. And as mentioned, George, in the end of her intervention, also to analyze and evaluate and study the use of sports programs to have different kinds of preventive impacts. To be truly effective, sports-based intervention must also be embedded in a broader, comprehensive strategies that are based in evidence and also can involve families, communities, and join forces between different parts of programmatic prevention activities. I would like also to mention, as coordinator of the DOA Global Program, I'm very proud to see the results that the Youth Crime Prevention Through Sport initiative has produced on the ground, and obviously very concrete and specific appealing methodology contributed to the efficiency that we have been seeing. So a big thank you to you, Georgia, to Lucia, to Safa, and the colleagues that work also in the field in our program, and all our partners and supporters. Of course, these promising results and obviously line-up, live-up intervention need to continue to increase effectiveness, quality, and expansion. And that's based also in our vision to have and continue the cross-sector partnerships that we have been seeing so far, and sharing the good practices between one region, between one country and another, and basically to align ourselves to adjust to the local communities' contextual frameworks. Further, we will for sure continue to promote sports and other educational social programs for youth as part of our holistic crime prevention strategies. Finally, to mention from UNODC side, we work closely with the sports sector, which are key also for success. We will continue to do so to prevent violence, crime, and obviously including substance abuse. building on positive values of sports, such as teamwork, inclusion, fair play, tolerance, and respect, and obviously promoting the role of sports for physically fitness, but also mental health and well-being. For sure, sports will create a safer environment, a safer place for communities and for also marginalized youth. Obviously, our final grateful mention also for the state of Qatar for allowing us to continue to program in this area, for renewed trust in our work, and obviously we will continue to commit to promote sports. And also, before I go ahead, it's been a pleasure to be with you, very inspiring discussion and presentations, and of course I wish you all a nice day, stay safe, and of course a big thank you to our panelists from different parts of the world for sharing their visions, their thoughts, their insights, and to all of you that share your time to be with us. So have a nice afternoon to all, and see you soon in our next event, which will be an evaluation of the impact of sport activities. Giovanna, bye-bye. Georgia?
Thank you all. Thank you. Have a nice afternoon or morning for some of you.